the stand. Now he runs. He produces a magic print. He pulls out another one. This is incredible. This is ridiculous. This is 15 out of 10 on the incredible meter. What a player. What an entertainer. Give him the medal. Give him the Delier medal.
Hello, footy fans, and welcome back to the Chip and Chase podcast here on this lovely Wednesday afternoon, heading into Origin Game 3. Really excited for the decider tonight. But before we get to the decider, of course, we have to go in and talk a little bit about some Supercoach, which if you guys can see up on the YouTube, if you're watching along on YouTube, if you're not, if you're just listening on an audio platform, head over to the YouTube channel at Chip and Chase. It's just a better way of engaging. You've got me. You can see everything up on screen, the stuff that we talk about and engage with. It's genuinely the best place to be, so I would encourage you to do that. If you are following along, you can see the score that we've got up on the screen, which makes me very excited to talk about Supercoach this week. Our round 19 score, 1,208, ranked us in the top 1%, 230th out of 159,000 teams for the week. Really happy. Needed this score. This is something that we sort of expected. We set up well for the bye rounds in general, but a lot of players that we brought in and we were pretty confident in didn't go well for the previous major bye rounds. Heading into this one, though, sitting here with a squad that I thought was amazing, and a lot of people described round 19 as probably the hardest major bye round to really get a good score or really have the numbers in general. So to head into this round with 17 players and a really good 17 players too, not really many bums in there, it meant we were able to come up with this massive, massive score. As I said, 230th for the round. Moves us up 6,258 places into a season rank of 9,411 now. Back into the top 10K. Really happy with that. Total score 20,784 for those playing along at home. You can see sort of how far off you guys are, or if you're ahead, how far ahead of me you guys are as well. So, yeah, this is something that we really needed. Heading into round 20, it gets a bit harder. Lots of Sharkies players in my team, a Dragon, a Eel, all of those teams on the bye this week. So we're sort of scrounging for numbers, but from what I've gathered, I'm definitely not the only one in that boat. I think there's a lot of people sort of sailing that ship with me. So really happy to get that score and hoping that we can pull together a pretty solid 17 for this week as well and move into the back end of the season really well. But yeah, 1,208 was our score. Really happy with how we all went there. Let's get into the team in general and go over everyone and how they played. So at hooker, Jake Simpkin scored 34. Of course, Harry Grant, our other hooker, does not play when A, Storm had the bye, B, he's an Origin player. Simpkin, we brought in a few weeks ago for Jaden Brayley, which turned out to be pretty good because Jaden Brayley in the Knights, they seem to not be seeing eye to eye at the moment. He's getting very few minutes over at the Knights. We just wanted to make that cash and go to Simpkin, knowing he played 16 and 19. I'm not sure if we did cop his score in 16. I'm also not sure if we copped his score this week. As I said, we had 17 players and only the top 13 count. So his 34 might have been one of the scores that made way for us this week. I'd assume it would be, but we'll go through. Regardless, 34 points. Again, it's a number. He did a job. If we did get that score, it's something at least. But moving into the front row, as we said, Harry Grant didn't play, so the other hooker is ignored. Jack DeBellin, 67 points in the front row. Really happy that we owned him. I think from about round 6 or something, we jumped on him really early. Really happy to have owned him. There were some sort of lower ones getting there. A lot of people were jumping off ship. I'm really happy to hold strong. That dual flexibility, and he's just, he's pretty consistent with what he's scoring. 67 points from Jack DeBellin at front row is genuinely fantastic. We will be running him as a front rower, whether it's a third front rower or a main front rower for the rest of the season. But yeah, really happy with that. Samuel Afanu, 48. I thought he would have went a bit better. I thought he was going to update and get that try assist I think it ended up being awarded to Jareen Buller, which, as an NRL fan and how NRL stats are awarded, I agree that's a Jareen Buller try assist. How Supercoach does their stats, though, it's very subjective how they do that sort of stuff. And based on Supercoach/Fox League stats, I thought Samuel Afanu might have got that. He did not, but still 48 points. I assume all of that was in tackles. Tigers were run off the park by the Sharkies. Look, we take it. Again, we're just happy to get some around that 50 score from him, especially in a bye round like that. So happy for that. Terrell May and Adam Fanua Blake, our other front rowers, did not play the round. Into our second row, this is where things could have went better / worse in a few different ways. So as you guys can see, if you're following along, David Fifita ended up with the captaincy for us. Now, we had the VC on Jesse Ramian. We had the captain on Jaden Campbell heading into this week, as you guys would have known if you watched the episode last week. I got cold feet after just heading into that game, essentially. I was very close to looping Rabian's 85 because, it's solid. It's just a score I would have taken. I think it was 84 before updates, so still would have taken that. But in the end, I was like, look, I think there's a lot more upside in Campbell, and I really think he can score 100 plus, which, as it turns out, we'll get to. He did exactly that. But there was also just a slight risk of injury with Campbell. He's had a few injuries along his career. I'm like, wouldn't it suck if I captained him and he went down like within 5 minutes and then I'm done? So I'm like, how about we go Dave Fifita? A game that I thought the Titans were going to win decently comfortably. Fifita, after being snubbed from Origin, thought he'd have a big game, and also just he's safer. Fifita being a forward, he's got that potential for upside. He is David Fifita, but at worst, he's scoring like 50 in base. So I was like, you know what, Fifita's safe. Let's just do that. And I was just a bit scared about his upside. He had about 48. I think he ended on 50 by the end of the game, and I was, quite disappointed in how it all went. He also had a HIA late in the game, so missed a bit of time there. And I was sitting there like, damn, this really sucks. I should have just stuck to my guns. But he updated to 76, which is crazy. 26 points in updates. He must have been awarded the try assist to, I think it was Philip Sami or Jojo Fifita on that right-hand side, sort of where Jaden Campbell made a hit. Sharkies lost the ball. Not Sharkies. The Eels player lost the ball. Would have been Tungo, I believe. Lost the ball. Fifita picked it up, skipped across field, beat a few tackles, made an offload. It went through like 2 sets of hands beyond that, and then they scored. I assume they updated and gave Fifita that try assist, which is how he sort of got to those points, which I'm not complaining about as a Fifita captainer, but I don't like how that sort of works. I don't like how you can update that much from stuff like that. I also don't think he should have been awarded those points, but I will take it as a captainer of him. So we move away from that, really sort of happy enough with the 76 doubled to 152 from Fifita. Then we have Britton Nikita, who scored 96, almost. I think he had 100. Oh no, yeah, it was on 99 or something and downgraded a little bit. Really happy with that. The Sharks, as we said, put on a bit of a run against the Tigers. Really good. He's been doing a lot of good stuff. A lot of people were looking to jump on him a few weeks ago. We've had him through the highs and lows, but really happy to have owned him. A lot of people were also talking about potentially selling him coming into the next couple of weeks. Got really good value. People want to move to Angus Crichton. It can be a very sideways trade to go straight across, not using much cash at all. I'm not here for it. I'm here to own Britton Nikita for the rest of the season. I like the Sharks' run. I love the way that they played against the Tigers. A lot of people were sort of scared with Nico Hines out. How would he fare? Would they go right? Look, they still managed to go both sides of the field, the Sharks. They really, it's a bit hard to get a read on them because it was against a really poor Tigers team, but I'm really happy to own Britton Nikita for the run home, and more than happy with his 96 for the major buy round. Homole Olakau'atu, 73, one of our trade-ins heading into this week. Really happy with it. It was a bit junk time. He was sort of not doing much, which I expected a bit more. Also, someone who was snubbed from the Origin Game 3 team. In fact, he was dropped while Fifita was just never even picked once. I expected a big one. I knew Manly would get a really good win in here. I was certain of it. 73 points was saved by a junk time try where Luke Brooks, the Knights played the ball to no one. Luke Brooks picked it up from dummy half, ran the length of the field, ankle tapped and tackled just before the line. Then it was literally just spread it just through the hands, and Olakau'atu he walked over the line, and that's not an exaggeration. So really good to get those junk time points, and it works well for our trade-in, and really happy to own him heading into the back end of the season as well. 73 points from him. Beau Fermor on our bench, 60 points from him. He's doing a job. I'm not sure I'm going to trade him. I've been tossing up essentially the entire season, and even now I'm still sort of tossing up. Do I get rid of him? Do I not? He's been there since day dot, and he's doing a great job, especially now with that centre wing duel. I think he may come in very handy with that flexibility. So we might potentially keep him, but we'll have a look at trades a bit later on. But 60 points from him, happy with that solid score. Josh Curran, Viliami Fifita did not play. Dylan Brown at halfback, 52 points. Look, it is what it is. Parramatta never really looked to be in it. Look, they didn't actually go that bad, but I really thought that the Titans sort of just got them back into the game or really took the pedal off. And Dylan Brown, look, he's a good player and he's been doing pretty decent this year. He always scores around this sort of 50 to 60, even without many attacking stats. So we take it. He is going to be someone that we look to sell, not this week, probably next week to Nathan Cleary is what we're looking at. Potentially a Daly Cherry Evans pod play as well is something that I'm tossing and turning about. I need to make a lot of moves. If everybody goes Cleary, am I going to be left behind or can I make up ground somewhere else? We'll have to see. I'm thinking Dill Brown to Cleary next week. But hey, he's done well for me all season and a 52 in this round I was happy with that. Sam Walker did not play into our 5-8s. We had Jai Gray, who we brought in. 64 points. That includes a try and try assist. Of course, the try didn't include a line break. Was that penalty try, which I don't think should have been awarded. But hey, what can you do? Happy to have it awarded as a Jai Gray owner. Look, not the best score. Makes me a little bit nervous playing him in future matchups. They do have the Tigers this week, and I'm short on numbers, so I'm sure he will get a reserve or even starting for us heading into this next round. But look, we'll take it for the round, 64 points. We will just take that happy as one of our purchases. I was hoping for a bit more out of him, though. But he's sitting there with a decent break even now, minus 33. He'll look to make a lot more cash, hopefully, in the next couple of weeks. Whether or not we have the trades to get him out of the side by the back end of the season, we will have to see. But for now, happy to have him in there. Our reserve 5/8, Lockie Galvin, 32 points from him. As we said, Tigers demolished by the Sharkies. Galvin kept trying. He really does. He's such a goer. He looks so good, plays well above his weight. I think he's going to be, if he can get just a good squad around him, it's such a shame that that he's sort of dealing with this being in a Tigers team, because I don't know what it is about the Tigers too. Like their roster, a lot of their roster isn't up to NRL standard, and that's fair enough. The outside backs, I think, need a lot of work. But even their front row, I think they're very inconsistent. Stefano and David Clemmer, I think they've both had really good moments this year, but I think they've been really inconsistent. I think they're both on decent wickets. People are saying if they lose Stefano, it's the end of the world. I'm not sure it is. For the money that he wants and other clubs are offering and how inconsistent he is, I know he can be a gun, but look, I don't know. We'll have to see what the Tigers do there. I feel for Galvin, though, because he really tries his heart out there. 32 points from him. Might have been one of the scores that made way for us this week, so won't say too much about that. We are looking to probably sell him. Nothing against him. If you are holding Lockie Galvin, you're actually in a good boat. Like, Tigers don't miss any games for the rest of the season. He's pretty consistent. Like, he does score relatively well against all sorts of clubs. Like even 32 this week with no attacking stats is not even bad base. It's not awful. You can live with that, occasionally. But high break even now, and just with the moves I want to make, I will be looking to probably move him on. But yeah, we'll talk more about that in a bit. Into our centre wings, this is where the damage was done for our team this week. Jesse Ramian, as we said, we had the vice captain on. Wish we put it on another Sharkies outside back, which we'll get to. But 85 points from Ramian, really happy with that in the end. Didn't loop it as we said, but yeah, we outlined him in the pod by last week as well. Had him since day one. One of my absolute faves for my team. He'll probably be my first pick like every year. I just love how he plays his footy, and no one tends to own him. So yeah, 85 points, love that. Ruben Garrick, 102 in that Manly demolition against the Knights. Could have been more. He was taken off with about 20 minutes to go with, apparently he was sick. It was a bit weird. I assumed Tom Trebojevic would get a spell in this one, but not the case. They gave Ruben Garrick the early shower. 102 points. Yeah, can't complain about tons. Unfortunately, Greg Marju's 14 in a week, that everybody was like, yeah, having a Greg Marju, like a gun centre wing like him for this major bye round, be really good. 14 points. He was injured in this game, and Knights were really poor and Manly were great. So, fair enough. But 14 points, yeah, very much made way from my scores, which is, sometimes I can cop that because, as I said, he's a gun that everybody else sort of really wanted to own or did own. And for them, they're like, okay, if we're scraping numbers, Greg Marju is the least of their worries. And then they get 14 and they may not have the the depth that I did, that score drops out. So you get stuck with that. So I'm okay with having low scores when I have depth in these sort of weeks. And Greg Marju happened to be that with his 14. Cal Ito, on the other hand, finally got a long way to try, which was good. We did put some money on him and Ramian to score. Got up on that, which was really good. 78 points from him. Yeah, I mean, what can you say? He's a gun, Cal Ito. Should have a decent break even now. 38, not too extensive. Obviously on the buy at the moment anyway, so not to worry there. But yeah, happy for that 78. Dom Young did not play. Ronaldo Mulatalo, 136. The buy that we brought in a couple of weeks ago, finally paying off. He's had some low ones, but this is what we brought him in for. Yeah, love that. I'm not sure what oops, I've just taken a reserve off. What ownership is he sitting at? 22% of teams. Yeah, okay. So he's decently highly owned. Been sitting here with, I might have brought him in for a 41 and a 31, but then, this 136, it pays me back. So really happy for that. If only we VC'd him instead of Ramian, but it was never really on the card, so I won't complain about it too much. But yeah, happy for that. Tolatal Kula still in our side, obviously injured, did not play. Into our fullbacks. This is where the team went insane. Jaden Campbell, who we brought in heading into this week, 111 points. If only we kept the captain on him like we planned. But again, I'm not going to complain too much. We had a great week regardless. But yeah, this is why we brought him in. Really happy with that. I see him staying at that 5/8 role for the Titans for the rest of the season and potentially long term. I didn't really see him as anything other than a fullback with his frame and the way he plays at fullback. I thought he was just out and out. But he's just got that natural ball playing ability, that natural almost just instincts about his game. I love the way he sort of goes about it, and seeing him play the way he's been playing at 5/8. I assume he just stays there, which is great because he's got that fullback 5/8 dual, minus 30 break even. He just made 120K and he's still going to make a shit ton more. Love to have him. I think he'll be my 5/8 for the run home. And if people didn't get on him, I don't think it's going to be really hard to get to him now. What's his ownership? 14% of teams. So a few people did jump on him last week, which is really good for them. If you don't get on him now, you're missing out, and it's going to be a tough run home, I reckon, though. But 111, love that. And lastly, Lehigh Hopawate. This one was unexpected. I assumed Lehigh's score would just be one of those that just dropped out of my team. 132 points on the wing. Amazing stuff. I do love that I made the meme over on Instagram. You know, super coaches and fantasy fans seeing Fletcher Sharp and Lehigh Hopawate named on the bench 2 weeks ago. And then 1 week later, they're starting again, and Lehigh Hopawate scoring 132 points. Originally, I had all my plans set that he was just the first trade out of my team. I'd go him straight to Reece Walsh. I've had to revamp those trade plans. Now with a break even of 3, Titans coming up, I think I'm going to hold on to him for 1 or 2 more weeks. Let him get a bit more cash. The way Manly played, he's been named on that wing again. I assume he can just keep scoring tries like he was and playing the way he was, and we can get a little bit more cash out of him. But that is how the team shaped up. Let's go through quickly the round 20 team lists. Try and run through this real quick. For the Raiders and the Warriors to start, the Raiders welcome back Jamal Fogarty at halfback, which is massive for them. Seb Chris comes back in at centre for Albert Hopawate as well. The other man into the side, Zach Hoskins, also returning from injury, which is great because I'm a massive Zach Hoskins fan, one of my favourites knocking about. So really good ins for the Raiders, which makes me a bit worried as a Warriors supporter. The changes we have made. Tane Torpiki comes in at fullback for the injured Charles Nickel Klukstad. Ali Leotau, I thought it was Leotawa, comes into the centres, where Roger Tuivasa-Sheck then moves to the wing for Marcelo Montoya. Love this. I'm a massive Ali fan. I think he's going to be one of our gun centres going forward. And Roger on the wing, I wasn't too impressed with him when he played wing earlier this year. A lot of people were because he scored a try. I think people really need to actually watch the game a bit closer. His defensive issues were worrying, but I think he's won a premiership at wing. He's been a Dally M winger of the year. He can play wing at a high click. He'll get his hands on the ball more, get more run meters, which I think we need out of him. It also means just getting Ali into the team, which I am really happy for as a Warriors fan. But for a Supercoach perspective, Ali could be a decent downgrade option. I'm not too sure what the news on what's his name? Rocco Berry is. The other one is Marcelo Montoya. He's out of this side with an injury as well. So I'm not sure if he will just come straight back in and move Roger into the centres. Something to think about there, but Ali Leotau could be a decent downgrade option. I like the Warriors run home. I think they're fighting for the finals, and he's just a gun player at a decent price. On top of that, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, also at a reduced price now on the wing. The work he gets through, I like that as a little pod buy option as well. For the rest of the Warriors team, Tohu Harris is out for the season. He's undergone, I think it was wrist surgery or hand surgery, which means Dylan Walker is now the starting lock, I'd assume, for the rest of the season. Beyond that, Lika Halasima, the debutant of 2 weeks ago, retains his spot on the bench. So they're looking like a good little squad here. Mitchell Barnett also named to back up from Origin. That's all sort of for those two teams. Heading down a bit more, was Hudson Young? Yeah, Hudson Young's still in there. I thought I missed Hudson Young. We have the Rabbitohs and the Wests Tigers. Rabbitohs, not too much changing here. I mean, they didn't win against the Dolphins, but they got close. Still got Jai Gray, Johnston, Milne, Kenner, Gagai, Whiten, Walker. I'm pretty sure it's the exact same side, except for Cameron Murray coming in at second row for Jai Arrow, who has undergone that season-ending shoulder surgery, and Cameron Murray returns from Origin straight into the starting side in the second row. Keon Kaloa-Matangi still named at lock, so if you did get on Keon, you're laughing. He has been a revelation at lock forward. For the Tigers, Luke Laulii comes onto the wing, the debutant from a couple of weeks ago. He replaces Alex Lobb. Solomon Afatape, Adam Dewey, still the centres. Charlie Staines on the wing. Galvin and Caesar are the halves. The other one, Api Coruscant, is out for the Tigers. Looking like a 1 to 2 week injury, so nothing too extensive. If you are an owner, you can probably hold it. Just sort of depends what your backup hooker is. I wouldn't be looking, especially if you're low on trades, I wouldn't be looking to really rush him out. If you're sitting there with, some, like, let's say you have Jake Simpkin like me, or you have or maybe you want enough, like a Jamie Humphreys, or you've got a Brendan Hands who's not playing. If you got someone like that as your backup hooker, I would probably just cop the AE for a week. I'm not sure it's worth the trade unless you're going to someone like Connor Watson. If you can do that straight away, sure, you can run Connor Watson for the run home. I think he is the best hooker option, Connor Watson. But it depends on your trade situation. I don't really want to be using trades at hooker because I don't think there's a massive amount of upside. Harry Grant, Api Coruscant, and Connor Watson have the most upside. But even then, I don't see them ever scoring more than like 100 and 110. Like I don't know. I don't think it's worth it. If it's a 1 week injury, you really don't want to be using a trade to get him out. I'd cop the AE and just give yourself a free chance at the vice captain loop. But that's sort of where I sit on owning Api Coruscant. As I said, Talon De Silva is the man to come in for him. On the bench as well, a few changes here. Latu Fainu and Alex Twal are back from injury, and Sione Fainu and Jordan Miller are the other men on the bench there. Good to see Twal back. I think it's been 6 weeks that he's been out with concussion, so I was getting a bit worrying there, but really good to see the fan favourite back. And Latu Fainu as well. Obviously, a lot of raps on him coming into the season, so good to see him back from injury and getting a run in as well. Into the Knights Broncos. The Knights have named Kalen Ponga to back up from State of Origin, which makes sense as he's only on the bench. Christian Mapapalangi stays on the wing. Greg Marju named despite his injury last week. Gagai and Best are the centres, so both of them also backing up from Origin, which the Knights need. If they make finals, they need to be playing their best side. Will Price remains in the starting side at 5'8", so lucky to anyone who brought him in. Hopefully he can keep that spot, but I'm a bit worried about Tyson Gamble taking that back from him in the coming weeks, but you should get at least another game out of him there and another price rise if you did bring him in. The forward pack, Kai Pearce-Paul starting at second row again, and Dylan Lucas coming off the bench, which is very interesting. That could change come game time. I don't really understand that. I think Dylan Lucas has been the Knights' best forward by a country mile this season, to be honest. So, we'll have to see if there's any changes there. Beyond that, there we go. Tyson Gamble at 18th man as well. Fletcher Sharp, of course, making way. So if you're a Fletcher owner, time to part ways. Get up to one of those gun fullbacks if you can. Tyson Gamble at 18th man is a bit worrying if you are a Will Price owner. Over to the Broncos, they've named essentially the exact same side that went down to the Dragons in round 19. But, of course, they do have Reece Walsh, Selwyn Cobbo, Patrick Carrigan, Payne Haas, and Adam Reynolds in the reserves. So I think they have to play them. I think, we'll get to my trades, and it involves a Broncos player. I think that they can't really afford not to have these players back up. This is a late Saturday. I know it's a sort of it's 5:30 Saturday. So you still have the Origin players will have all of Thursday and Friday to back up and just rest. I think they have to play all of them in this game. If they don't, I'm all for resting players after Origin. I think it's a good thing to do if you're in the position to do so. He rested them after game 2. I still thought that was the right decision, despite the fact that, they hadn't won a few games. I think they have to back up now. They just don't have... They need to win. So I wouldn't be too worried if you're a Paddy Carrigan or a Cobbo, Walsh or Haas owner. I think they back up, and I think they play decent minutes, but we'll have to wait and see. Also, Adam Reynolds on the reserves. Not sure he plays this week, but good to see he's not far off. They're going to need him for the run home as well. Then we have the Storm and the Roosters. The Storm, not too much going on. Nick Meaney returns from his injury in the centres. Grant Anderson goes to the wing, and the really tall Kane Bradley is the man to make way. Jack Howarth also still in the centres, so good to see him getting an extended run. Not too much else going on for them. Trent Liero starts at lock forward, which moves Josh King into the front row. In the benches, Suafa-Longo, Christian Welch, Nelson Asofa-Solomona, and Alec McDonald. So not a whole lot there. In the reserves, they do have Ramus Smith, so we'll have to see if he does come in. But he's been there for a few weeks now, so I'm not actually sure that he does get in. I think Jack Howarth has earned that spot from what I've seen, and Craig Bellamy will keep going with him there. Over to the Roosters, though, I'm really excited for this game. Two of the top teams in the NRL, really excited. James Tedesco, of course, named Tupou. Suali'i backing up, finally coming back from his suspension, actually. Tupanua still in the centres. Dom Young, they've named essentially a full-strength side here. Terrell May, of course, starts at front row for Jared Warrior-Hargraves, who got suspended in his record match game a couple of weeks ago, so good for any Terrell May owners still out there, including myself. Crichton and Lindsay Collins named to back up from Origin, as is Connor Watson at lock forward. And Spencer Leniu also backing up off the bench. But yeah, the main one there, probably Terrell May and Connor Watson, and even Angus Crichton if you are looking to bring him in, or if you still own him if you never sold him. Panthers, Dolphins next. The Panthers, they are resting. Who are they resting? They're resting Isaiah Yeo and Dylan Edwards. Now, they have named Brian To'o, Liam Martin in the reserves. I almost expect them to back them up. I'm pretty sure they gave them a rest after round 16. So, I don't know, I'd expect To'o to back up, but Panthers are in a good position that they don't really need to. But beyond that, the big one here is that Nathan Cleary makes his very long-awaited return from injury, named at halfback for the Panthers. Brad Schneider partnering him at 5'8", Dane Laurie still at fullback. Now, keep in mind, when I said that Isaiah Yeo and Dylan Edwards are out, they are fully out. They're not named in the reserves, so they will not play, while Brian To'o, Jerome Luai and Liam Martin, the other three Origin players, they're in the reserves, so they have a chance of coming in before game time. So just keep that one in mind. Not too much else really of note Supercoach-wise for the Panthers. For the Dolphins, the Hammer is back at fullback, returning from Origin, which moves Trey Fuller onto the bench, which is a good little spot for him. It'd be such a shame to see him fall out of this side completely with the way he's been playing, so really good to see that. Felice Kofusi also returning from Origin in second row, with Ewan Aitken out for what looks to be the season with, I believe it was a pec injury, so gutting stuff for Ewan Aitken. He's been a revelation this season, off to the Rabbitohs next year. So it's really disappointing that this is seemingly the way he finishes his time at the Dolphins. He's been a great player, great signing for them. So yeah, gutted to see that. But Felice Kofusi comes back in there. Not too much else there. Into the Seagulls and the Titans. The Seagulls naming a very similar team to last week, but of course, Daly Cherry Evans and Jake Trbojevic return from Origin. Jake Trbojevic at lock forward, and of course, DCE at halfback. But still Lehigh Hopewate on the wing, and Tommy Talau at centre with Garrick Saab on the other wing. So really good for Lehigh owners. as myself. Nathan Brown as well, a very well-earned start at front row after his performance at lock forward last week. I actually would prefer him to stay at lock forward and just move Jake Trbojevic into a front row role, but regardless, I don't think too much changes. You can still use Nathan Brown as a link man role from the front row position. It doesn't really matter what numbers on his back, but well earned for him to start. Jake Simpkin also still at hooker, which is good for me if Harry Grant isn't backing up from Origin this week. Actually, I did miss that. Harry Grant is named to back up from Origin, but we'll have to see how he pulls up with that sternum injury. I'd need him to play personally. I don't really want to play Jake Simpkin this week, but at least he's named if I need to. Beyond that, not too much for the Seagulls. For the Titans, Keanu Keeney back at fullback after being switched to the bench before last week with AJ Brimson coming in to fullback on game day. Brimson, he's gone to 18th man, apparently pulled up a bit sore after that game, of course, coming back from injury with that groin issue. So probably misses this week, but named the 18th man while he's injured is a bit interesting, so we'll have to see how it all takes place there. Honestly, I thought Keanu Keeney, the way he's been playing, and even I liked his impact last week as well, coming off the bench. I think he stays at fullback, which is really hard because AJ Brimson, to me, is the best Titans player out and out. I think he is the Titans. But you can't really, and even, before Keeney came in and Brimson was at fullback, I thought Brimson was their best player. I don't know, it's really hard, but you can't really dislodge Keeney and Campbell with the way that they're playing, so we'll have to see what happens there. I don't think Jaden Campbell gets dislodged, and that's sort of all that matters to me as an owner, but anybody who went Keanu Keeney, very interesting stuff there. Not too much else for them. Mo Fodawaker also named to return from Origin at front row. Let's move into the Cowboys and the Bulldogs. For the Cowboys, they've named, the sort of side that they keep on naming during these Origin times. It's lots of reserve grade players here. Jackson Perdue, Liami Vailea, Braden Burns, Jake Clifford, all these players sort of in. Sam McIntyre at starting lock. Taumalolo starts at front row, and their bench is Harrison Edwards, Tom McHaley, Jamal Shibasaki, and Griffin Neem. But, of course, their reserves include Ruben Cotter, Reece Robson, Jeremiah Nanai, Tom Dearden, and Valentine Holmes. So 5 of their Origin stars are amongst the reserves. Again, I'd expect them all to come in. Maybe they could rest like a Reece Robson or a Ruben Cotter, but I'm not too sure. I think that they all play. Cowboys are also fighting for a spot in the 8 this season, so I think they need to play their best side where they can, but we'll have to wait and see for any owners of those players. For the Bulldogs, not too much going on here. Stephen Crichton named to back up from Origin, as is Matt Burton, who, of course, you'd expect as he's only 18th man. Josh Curran starts at front row, which is interesting. Of course, Max King out for a few weeks. It could even be the season for Max King with that injury there. I can't remember exactly what he did, but he's out definitely. So good to see Josh Curran get the start. Hopefully that means increased minutes and just good stuff for Supercoach, as I'm still an owner, but we'll have to see. Their interchange is Bailey Hayward, Pawasa Farmasili, Curtis Morin, and Lipoi Hopoi. I probably stuff that up every time I do it, but we gave it a crack. But yeah, interesting stuff there. And that is all for the Team List Tuesday changes of round 19. Let's go into the trades, shall we? Now, before we go into, let's start with the most traded in players and most traded out of the week. So the most traded in, the number one most traded in player this week, Tom Trbojevic. I mean, it makes sense. He came back and he scored 119 on that bye round. He's a gun. If he is the man that you're looking to run the run home with, makes a lot of sense. We will be talking a little bit more about Tom Trbojevic in a bit, so I'll sort of gloss over him a little bit more now. Number 2, Nathan Cleary, the next most traded in. A lot of people just looking to go early. He's the best player in Supercoach. He's the best player in the NRL. Had a bit of a down season this year, fair enough, but it's still Nathan Cleary. Yeah, if you want to go early, go for it. But he does have a 180 break even, I believe. 189, even worse than I thought. I'm looking to give him a week and then maybe pick him up next week. But it's against the Dolphins. He could go huge. He's at a decent price of 805. He started the season at 900K. I'm still looking to wait a week, but I can see the appeal in going early. Tavita Pangai, he's the next most traded in. I like it. I really like how he played for the Dolphins. I loved his minutes, just everything about how he's playing. His second row, front row forward duel, which I think is massive. He's also only 379k, so I think that's a really good trade. If you want to drop a Samuel Afinu to him, you make 130k or something, which is really good stuff for someone who's probably going to put up similar or potentially better numbers. And yeah, still has that front row, second row duel. So I don't mind it. Matt Burton, 4th most traded in, and Reid Marnie, 5th most traded in. We won't touch on too many others. 8th most traded in player is Connor Watson, though, who I think if you are to bring him in, it's a really good shout. Second row hooker duel. Versatility is great. The way he's been playing is fantastic. I really want to own him. I'm just a little bit scared of owning a lot of Roosters players. Obviously, I own Dominic Young and Sam Walker, who I want to own for the season probably. I'm going to get Angus Crichton very soon. If I own Connor Watson, there's 4. I'm anti-potting Teddy, so, you know, I'll miss that one, but there's going to be a lot of out there who own Tedesco as well. Then you're looking at maybe 5 Roosters, and that could just be a lot. When they have their bye, it could be killer. That's a lot of money that you'll be missing for that week. But in saying that, I do think he's the best hooker option in Supercoach, and you can even bring him in at second row this week if you want, if you have the sort of duels to allow for that. So I like those. The most traded out players, let's look at the top 5. Fletcher Sharp, number 1, makes a whole lot of sense. Probably a lot of those players going straight to Tom Trbojevic, which is why he's the number 1 most traded in. Just makes sense. You got to do it now. Move him on to one of those gun fullbacks, which we'll talk about. Appy Coruscant, next most traded out. Interesting, we've already talked a little bit about Appy saying, it's only meant to be a 1 to 2 week out, so you could definitely hold, even if you're sitting there with someone lesser in that second hooker position. I'd be very tempted to just cop an AE this week or even potentially next week if you can afford that. If you've got a good, depth squad and you don't have someone who's going to score you 3 points. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed to trading him out. If you're doing it, I assume it is to Connor Watson, and that's just the best move, which is fair enough. But, yeah, I'd personally be holding probably. Nico Hines, third most traded out. Fair enough. If you didn't sell last week, you're probably looking to sell this week to Nathan Cleary. Makes a lot of sense. You could wait another week and wait for Cleary to go down in price. But again, Nico Hines is sitting there and not doing anything with his money, so you may as well move him on. Blaze Talangi and Dylan Brown, the 4th and 5th most traded out. Both make sense. I think Dylan Brown, a lot of people will be trading him to Nathan Cleary, as I will be looking to next week probably. And Blaze Talangi, he's served his time. He's done you a great job. Parramatta have an awful run home. I don't see him picking up too many good points. I think it's time to move him on. Beyond that, there's players like Ewan Aitken and Lockie Galvin and Kayla Ito, players like that, which are all decent sells. Kayla Ito, definitely one that we'll look at in a bit, but for now, we'll leave it at that. Let's have a look at the best buys for round 20. Now, normally we do our point of difference players, and now while these guys technically do qualify for that as they're all under 10% ownership, we're mainly looking at the fullbacks for the run home. So I've got a little bit less to read on this right-hand side. I'll read through that real quick, and then we'll have a quick look over these. Once again, if you're just listening on an audio platform, this is up on the Instagram, so go and check out the Instagram so you can see this, follow along. Really good insight. This is stuff that could potentially help you in a big way for you making your decision on what fullback that you want for the run home. So I'll quickly read through this. Moving into the back end of the season, running 2-gun fullbacks becomes essential in moving up ranks. A lot of players out there will be eyeing up the best partner to pair with James Tedesco, while others will be looking to find the best antipod options to avoid Teddy at his sky-high price. In this post, we outline 3 of the best options at low ownership who could be the guys for your team. So starting with Tom Trbojevic. As we said, most traded in this week. Makes a lot of sense. If you're moving Fletcher Sharp on, these 3 players that we're sort of outlining are the best options, in my opinion. The best part about Supercoach this year, though, is I think there's not really many bad options. Scott Drinkwater has been playing great this year. They have a tough run, the Cowboys, to finish the season, but also Cowboys, they need to win games. They rely a lot on Scott Drinkwater. I definitely still see him having some good scores in there, so here's another option. Ryan Pappenhausen's another option I didn't mention. Charles Klugstad's injured, but, he was averaging really good before this as well. There's a lot of great fullback options. But Tom Trbojevic, now that he's back at fullback and scoring hundreds again, is he the best man? They've got Titans this week, so I think it'd be the best time to go for it. He does have a bye in 3 weeks, but a lot of these players that we'll look at all have buys to come. So whether it's next week or the week after or 3 weeks after that, you'll end up playing the same amount of games. I think the Storm don't. So if you wanted to go for Ryan Pappenhausen, he's probably the only player that will be playing, like the only real gun fullback that'll play the rest of the season. But, the Storm, they're 2 wins clear of every other team. Do they rest players? Probably. He's probably most in line for a rest. So we'll have to wait and see for that. But Tom Trbojevic at 730K. Well, yeah, 730,900 technically. Fullback, 7% ownership. Those are the players that jumped on him last week. They have Titans coming up this week, so I think it's a good time. It's at Brookvale. They can put some points on there. Titans have been good, but it's still Manly against the Titans. It's a matchup that you'd like to have. They do have Roosters after that, which is a lot tougher than the bye, but then they have a really good run home, starting with Raiders, Warriors, who I think are some really good matchups. Look, I mean, what can you say? It's Tom Trbojevic. A lot of you think back to 2021, and it didn't matter who he was up against. He scores, and he scores well. So, yeah, he's our first player. You can see the graph up there, how he's scoring this season in each category. This is the sort of important stuff you want to know when you're making your decision. The next man on our list, we have Reece Walsh. A little bit more expensive, 762,900. Yeah, okay, I just wanted to quickly see that. 10% ownership for him, so decently pod as well. As I said, a lot of people will be looking at one of these guys to pair up with Tedesco. Myself, I'm probably looking at two of these guys in the next couple of weeks because I'm going against the grain because I can't get to Tedesco. Another player you might own is a Dylan Edwards, who, if you do own it, you'd just keep, but you wouldn't buy him this week because he's just not been named. But Reece Walsh, Knights this week, Bulldogs, Titans, Cowboys, and then a bye. I like that run. Bulldogs will be hard. He's technically not even been named for the Broncos, as we just spoke about. He's in the reserves. But as I said, I'm so confident that they have to back up. These Origin players have to back up. The Broncos need to win essentially every game from here on to make the finals. I see Reece Walsh doing absolutely everything he can to do that. I owned him earlier this season. It was so fun, and I want to do it again. So I will be bringing in Reece Walsh this week. If by chance he doesn't end up playing, obviously he's in the reserves. If they don't bring him into the squad, I will probably go to Tom Trbojevic, since Tom Trbojevic plays in the late game and I can just straight do that swap. But Reece Walsh is, for me, my number one target at fullback. I like his run home. I love the idea of the Broncos playing for their season. I just like owning him. It's pretty fun. So for me, Reece Walsh is who I'm looking at. But you guys, so the information's all up on here. You can make a decision. And lastly, our final man is Kalen Ponga, the most expensive of the three at 786,400. Does have a break even of 180, so you could wait a week. They got Broncos this week. They also then have the bye, and then they come back to Panthers, but then it gets a lot easier for the run home for them. Kalen Ponga is probably the other player I'm looking to partner with Reece Walsh for the season, for the run home. Not this week, and then obviously not for his bye. I'll potentially bring him in against the Panthers, or maybe the week after for the Tigers, after he's dropped a little bit of cash. But I like Ponga's run home. I always think about what he did last season. He's also another player that's really fun to own. Having Reece Walsh and Kalen Ponga, I just feel confident about them in my fullback. So I like the idea of going Kalen. If you want to jump on him now, you definitely can. You cop Broncos, but the Broncos aren't what they used to be. The bye next week, as I said, it's either next week or it's 3 weeks later. All of these players that we've looked at, they all have a bye coming up. So it doesn't matter when it is, as long as you have the depth to cover that position during that time. And then Panthers, so the first 3 games of his draw that we've outlined here, tough. Broncos, bye, and Panthers, not ideal. But his run home is really good. You can just set it up now and just go him. Remember last season, it didn't really matter who he played, how he was going. It didn't matter. He was just electric. So another player that, very keen on. But those are the 3 that we've looked at. As I said, if you're just listening on an audio platform and you're tossing this decision up yourselves, maybe you want to buy 2 of these guys like me, go and check out the Instagram. This is what this is up there for. It's a lot of good information. It's really good stuff that you need to sort of note down when you're making these decisions. But those are the 3 fullbacks that we're looking at for the run home. As I said, lots of good options. Let's just have a quick look at the other options in that fullback position. Sort by average. As I said, Dylan Edwards averaging the most this season. James Tedesco then. Latrell Mitchell, when he comes back from injury, also a good option. Jaden Campbell's the fourth most now, so if you have him at fullback, you could. Trebojevic, Drinkwater, Ponga, Garrick, Walsh, Pappenhausen, Hammer, Trey Fuller, Charles Nickel-Klugstad, Keanu Keeney. Like, there's so many options, and that's what makes Supercoach so fun this year. It's not just set and forget. There's no real wrong answer. But let's move into the trades that I'm personally making. Now, I've ummed and ahed, and a lot of things can still change. We were toying with using a boost this week. I might still, because last year I don't need to make a boost with the trades I sort of want to do. But last year I ended up not finishing. Like, I finished the season with a boost. I just, didn't end up using it. So I'm tempted to do it this week to get my team really set. Now, we're sitting with 9 trades remaining, 512,000 in the bank. The players that we need to get in for the run home, I need 2 fullbacks. So I'm looking at a Ponga, a Walsh, or something like that. There's 2 trades, or potentially 3 for them. I need an Angus Crichton in as another trade. Say I can do all of them in one hit, which I can't. Let's say I can do them in 4 hits. That leaves me with 5 trades left for the rest of the season. Now, I can't do them in 1 week. Definitely not. I also don't want Ponga this week. But it's just an icky trade situation. So let's start by Reece Walsh. We talked about, I want him in. Now, I could go Lehigh Hopewate to him, but as I said, I want to cash in on Lehigh's money that is incoming. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trade Lachlan Galvin this week. Means I can put Jaden Campbell back into 5/8, and I'll bring in Reece Walsh. As I said, if Reece Walsh doesn't end up playing, I will just go straight swap across to Tom Trebojevic. But for now, I'm set on Reece Walsh. There is 1 trade. Now, the other thing about this week that we sort of mentioned earlier is I'm low on numbers. I'm missing Jack DeBellin, Britton Nikita, Viliami Fafita is another player in my squad who doesn't play this week. Dylan Brown is another. Jesse Ramian, Kale Ito, Ronaldo Mulatalo, and Tolatau Kula. So 8 players. 8 players I can count. 8 players this of my, top however many we get, top 25, top 27, don't play this week. So it's a pretty tough... No, it's not. It's less than that, isn't it? Anyway, pretty tough week for me. So I do need to trade people out. Now, the players I want, obviously Angus Crichton. Ideally, I'd go Kula since he's out, he's injured. I would trade him. I'll put Beau Fermor down into centre wing, and I'd bring in Angus Crichton. But guess what? I am 5,300 short of doing that in 1 hit, which would be the absolute dream. So that one is a bit of a killer. So then, of course, we could boost and then get in someone like... Let's just toy with the idea of a boost. Let's hit boost. Let's do that again. We'll still go Kula out, Beau Fermor down, and Angus in. So where do we make the money from there on? Who knows? My centre wing, maybe I'll sell a Kale Ito at 509k. Who could I bring in instead of Ito? Alex Johnston. If you guys know me, I've been a big fan of Alex Johnston in recent seasons. 394k, set to make money. Tigers this week. Leave me with 109k in the bank. There's an option. Another option I've sort of liked the idea of. Didn't play, but averaging should be around here. Isaac Tungo, also at 398k. So, a bit more base on him. Cleary back. Potential that he goes well there. I like those 2 as trade-in options to make money and to have for the run home. But do I really want to trade Ito? Do I just keep him for the rest of the season? Or is it too risky owning 3 Sharks for the rest of the season? Well, 3 Sharks and a Wings for the rest of the season. It's all sort of tough things to really note. The other thing I could do, which could just be without using the boost, is I skip Crichton this week, as he does have should have had a look at that while I was there. Should be pretty high. 121 break even versus the Storm. Might get rested. Maybe I'll skip him, and instead of doing the boost, I can go Kula out as he's, as I said, injured. I drop Beau Fermor down, and then I bring in Connor Watson. I can do that in 1 hit and have 100k in the bank. It's not a bad option. Let's settle on that for now. Now let's look at Sit v starts. I'm going to have a quick. We'll come back to trades, but I need to do Sit v starts to work out how many players I have in my squad. So Dominic Young has to come in. Bo Fermor has to come in, and then I sit my 3 Sharks players. Dylan Brown out. Sam Walker comes in. Britton Nikota out. Connor Watson comes in. Jack DeBellin out. Terrell May comes in. All right, so in an ideal world, my reserves this week would be, I say ideal world, I don't really have options. So obviously no centre wings. They can't play any of them. I would give a reserve to Lehigh Hopewate this week, Jai Gray, Josh Curran, and Samuel Afainu. I do have one other playing player, and that's Jake Simpkin. So it sort of makes it, the decision makes itself in that sense. I don't really want to play Jake Simpkin. If Harry Grant is out, then I'll just play Jake Simpkin straight away. If there are other Origin restings, it stuffs me around a little bit. Or do I have any Origin players? I don't. I mean, Reece Walsh, but I can just trade to Tom Trebojevic. And if Connor Watson's rested, then I just wouldn't trade him in. So those are some options there. Now, just the question is, do I want Connor Watson for the run home? I could potentially just move him to hooker and then go Harry Grant to... No, I don't really... I want him, like, don't get me wrong, but it'd just be too hard to own him at second row. So the other options that we're looking at here... Sorry, this is playing around on the track, and knowing me, as we always sort of do on these videos, I would talk about all this and then I'll change my trade decisions and let you know on the Instagram anyway. But I don't really want to bring in Connor Watson this week. So the other option is, let's just take that back to, who did we have there? Tolotau Kula. So move Bo Fermor back into second row, and we'll bring in Kula. Maybe based on 3-round average, he should be up there. Maybe not. Jesus. How far down is Kula? I must have went past him. There's no way he's that far down. Okay, bugger it. Let's just let's make this one a bit quicker. Undo changes, update trade. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. So, yeah, complete trade. There we go. So Kula back in the center wing. Now, what else could we do? I could sell Kale Ito this week instead of Kula, and then bring in Angus Crichton in that one swap as well. That works out all right, but do I want to sell Ito? Not fully, not really. How the hell is Kula back in? And oh no, I've stuffed up. Anyway, I'm torn on what to do is mainly what I'm looking at. I'm tempted to boost and do 3 in one big hit. I'm thinking of going Kula, Galvin, and maybe Ito or Fermor to... I could even go Fainu. Maybe I'll go Fainu this week to... Let's have a look at that. Let's toy with that. Let's boost. Let's undo changes because it's stuffed it all up, which means that my entire team is going to switch around again. So Galvin out. Campbell up. Samuel Fainu out. Let's just move Viliami Fafita up for now. And what was the last move that we wanted to make? Kula out. Now let's see what the money's looking like as I bring players in. Angus Crichton comes in. Where's Reece Walsh at? Reece Walsh comes in. I still have 500k in the bank. I could potentially... I have to bring in a centre wing based on that, or I could bring in a second row if I moved Fermor down. But I don't really want to do that. Let's move... No, well, let's bring in a centre wing, and maybe we just go... Where is he? Maybe let's go Alex Johnston. Leaves me with 105k in the bank. Gives me Crichton this week, Walsh this week. Or I don't boost, and I just go... Sorry, not that. Kula and Galvin to Walsh and Johnston this week. Leaves me with 386k in the bank. Crichton to lose cash, potentially, probably against the Storm. Johnston can be a 6th or a 7th centre wing for the run home. I've got really good centre wings with Ramien, Garrick, Marju, Ito, Young, and Mulatalo. Johnston has the Tigers twice in the rest of the season, which is ideal matchups. I'm sorry, Tigers fans. Leaves me with 386k in the bank. Next week, I can just go straight Samuel Afinu to Angus Crichton, which would be ideal. Or I can go Beau Fermor straight to Angus Crichton and Samuel Afinu to Charlie Geimer to free up cash. Look, I think this is where we're settling at the moment. I like Johnston's matchup. I don't have to play him for the most weeks, but I will want to play him this week. I think, capitalising on that and giving that money back in the bank is where I want to go. I don't really want to sell Ito. I was toying with it for weeks and weeks leading up to this. I always planned to sell him heading into this, but with the way the Sharkies play, it's potentially a good hold for the rest of the season. So I think that's where we're setting for now. But as I said, knowing me, I'll change that, and you guys can find out on the Instagram. But the trade-ins that we have done are Lachlan Galvin and Tolotau Kula to Alex Johnston and Reece Walsh this week. Leaves me with 386,000 in the bank. 7 trades remaining, a boost in hand. As I said, the players that we want to get to are Nathan Cleary, probably 1, which we can do in one trade next week or the week after. We need to get Angus Crichton in, there's 2, and we need to get Callum Ponga in, there's 3. But knowing the prices, I'll probably have to spend 4 trades on that. It's going to be a tough way to go. But I think we can get this one done. I think the depth I have, especially, in this front row, second row position, knowing that I've got Samuel Afinu, who I'll probably move on, but still Jack DeBellin and Josh Curran, who can just constantly move around in second row. And then 7 playing and decent good centre wings. I think my depth in this squad is well and truly enough to carry me home, and I can use 3 trades in the final however many weeks if I need to. So that's where we're sitting. That took a lot of time. We've also gone through the sit v start, so I'll skip over that already. And then we go into captains this week. All right, let's close this up. I've rambled for way too long. This has been one of my worst podcasts. Raiders and New Zealand Warriors. I don't think there's any captain options in that game. I also don't think there's many players that people own in that game. You might own a Mitch Barnett or a Tamare Martin. You're not captaining them, and I don't think there's any Raiders players that people own. Rabbitohs Tigers. Potential, not really without Latrell Mitchell. You could potentially throw a VC on a Cody Walker if you do own him. I'm tempted to throw a VC on a Alex Johnston after bringing him into the side in that game, but we'll have to see. Knights and Broncos, this one in Newcastle. I was going to go to this one, but I've ended up picking up a shift to work instead. Reece Walsh, definitely a vice captain or straight captain option in this game. Callum Ponga, also a decent option. As I said, it's in Newcastle and they normally get up a bit more for that. So Callum Ponga, if you have him, also worth a VC or captain look in. Storm and Roosters, I'm tempted to stay well away from this game. I mean, James Tedesco is always decently safe, but against the Storm, it's a bit of a risk. Both 2 really good teams and lots of captain options, but because they're versing each other, I'm going to sit that one out. The Panthers and the Dolphins, if you bring in Nathan Cleary, I love putting the big ball straight captain on him. I think that's a great call. Manly versus Titans, Tom Trbojevic, captain option. Even a Jaden Campbell captain option if you want, but Manly are no slouch, so maybe not. And lastly, Cowboys Bulldogs. I don't think there's anyone in that game, even if you're a Scott Drinkwater owner or whatnot. The Bulldogs defense is too good to really look for a captain in that one. So personally, let's quickly go through and do my sit v starts so I can actually work out who I'm captaining this week. Bang, 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 bang. Walker plays. Nikita out. Josh Curran, yep, you can start. Jack DeBellin out. Terrell May and Adam Fanua-Blake start. What's Samuel Afinu's break even? 71. Maybe I do trade him out. As I said, I'll let you guys know. I won't dwell on that too much more. If you want to find out who I do trade for, head over to the Instagram and I'll let you guys know. My reserves, as I said, are Samuel Afinu, Beau Fermor, Jai Gray and Lehigh Hopewate this week. My captains, or also you could go a Dave Fifita captain against Manly is an option. VC this week, I think I'm going to go the early games. I think I'm going to VC Alex Johnston, which is very bold, but I'm going to do it. And I think I'm genuinely going to captain Reece Walsh against the Knights. It's a bit bold, but I'm going to back that one in, and that's where I sit. So that is where we're going to wrap this one up. As I said, sorry for rambling, but if you've stuck around to the end, thank you guys very much. And yeah, I guess that one will do us. So thank you guys for tuning in. I'll see you guys next time.